Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. You guys know what I like to do on my show. I want to enlighten you. I want to inspire you. I want to empower you to become your best self. Now, Scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. We'll be spending time with Kenneth Amer today about his book, Into the Light, to the Other Side of Tomorrow. So you know what I'm going to tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining us here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Well, thank you very much for making me a guest of your honorable show you have here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as is tradition here on the show, we always give our guests an opportunity to introduce themselves to perhaps those few folks out there that might be unfamiliar with you or your work. So first question to you, Kenneth, is what makes you you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm been in the various different kinds of work in the past, from the state hospital to Arizona Districts for the Blind, Goodwill, and places like that. And I've learned a lot from these backgrounds about people. And when since I was a kid, of 6 or 7, I was like segregated, like in special ed classes. I wonder why I was different than other folks. And I figured I needed to do a book, how I survived it, and I went to normal classes because of my artwork. I started artwork since I was a kid, and it got me to what they call the normal classes. And then I got interested about the world. Why are we so different? And I say, why do we care? I just want humanity to get over the self, have multiple identities, sharing the best of themselves and awareness, not to be frightened of their differences in the 3%. I never understood that we're 98% alike. And I think, yeah, I've always been curious about that since I was a child.
I can definitely understand that. Now, being an author, is that something that you've always wanted to do, or did you find that this was simply another way for you to share your ideas and help people become their best selves?
Yeah, there you go. You hit it on the nose. I wanted to do that since I was in high school, and I always felt that I could do more. I mean, being legally blind or being segregated into playgrounds and rooms and different buses, I found out we're not different from one another. And I found out when I went to these classes I could do more. Maybe I can do music or art on the side. Right now, what I'm doing on Facebook, I'm just putting out music and then doing writings and little article things.
Absolutely.
And I always felt like I could do something.
That. I love it. I love it. Now, let me get back to the book. The title of your book is Into the Light, to the Other Side of Tomorrow. Why was that the proper title for this work?
Because I always dealt with stuff like helping other people too, and they have who had it lots worse off than I. And I always wondered about. I had problems being either esoteric, existential, metaphysic, political, agnostic, atheist, fundamentalist faiths. I think we all can get along with one another. And then in my studies, I found out my studies in these areas have similarities to it, like purgatory for the Akashic records is like a house of lessons, or from Far East to the Western thing. And the more I looked into it, like from the Mormons and from the Catholics and the Greek Orthodox, these people had similarities. And I wanted to bring out, let's get over ourselves and get rid of this artificial super race thing because it doesn't exist. That's why I wrote the book.
So my next question for you, Kenneth, is about the age group or who the appropriate reader would be. Would you say that your book is appropriate for someone as young as high school as well, or do they need to be a little bit older to be able to understand what you've shared?
Probably a little bit older to understand when I'm sharing, and if there are younger ones, I want them to open up their minds to new areas of learning of group.
And I asked that question because for many of our listeners out there, they are much like myself, and they love to purchase books and give them as gifts. So when we're thinking about birthdays or anniversaries or a just because gift, you can have the right person in mind and say, okay, great. I know someone who could use this book that might be like in their 30s, and this is a great new read for them. So thank you so much for clearing that up. Now, as far as the proper way to read your book, I know for many authors, they will construct it in a way to kind of help guide the reader along the way. What do I mean by that? In that they will construct the chapters to be read in order. You hear about that reader that says, I like to read the last page first, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But many authors will say, no, absolutely, I have put it so that, read chapter 1 and then chapter 2 because you need to know what happens before you go to the next chapter. Did you set your book up in a way that we would need to read it in any particular order, or is it reader's choice?
It is more like a reader's choice in this book. I didn't put it from A to Z. I put it in a way they can go to 4 or 5 different areas, so they won't read the last page. They'll force them to open their minds to look in these areas. It's kind of abstract in a way, but I set it up that way so they can go through it, like ones with poems and ones with the political opinions. I kind of separate it that way so they can...
I like it. Okay. And I like how you said that it's reader's choice. You've still kind of given a little bit of direction. You've given some clear paths, but you still leave it up to the reader. And I think that's awesome. I love it. Now, some of the authors that I have spoken with, Kenneth, they say that they were kind of prompted or nudged, if you will, to get out there and write the book, right? That their friends have said, listen, you need to share that story, or you need to give us this wisdom, put it in a book so everyone else can get it as well. Did you have such an inspiration or a nudging or prompting to really get the book out, or did you find that it was simply in life's good timing?
It is life good timing. I put it out what was around my environment and the many people that surrounded me. And even with my sight problem, I learned that being on the bus or going on Beltran, you meet a lot of different people, and I listen and hear. And I met so many from different places with hardship. It made me have an inspiration to just be like a pebble in the system. I could make a little bit of difference. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I think that we all have a ripple effect on those around us. We take this interview, for example. I'm where I am, you are where you are, but guess what? We have international listeners for this program. So even though we may be on the radio in a certain location, someone's going to listen to this later when it gets Spotify or whatever, and they're going to hear it at a totally different time on a different day. It might even be a few months into the future, but they're still going to hear it. So absolutely, each one of us can make a ripple effect into the other in a positive way. So I love it. I love it. Now, there's one thing that you want readers to understand, having picked up a copy of your book. And I want to make sure that you have an opportunity to tell them what that is. What do you want for that takeaway for each reader to be?
I want the reader to read it to inspire them to do what they can do in life, and they can go out to do their dreams, no matter if they're disabled or mentally ill or what this word normal means. Because I just want to open some doors of some perceptions and some different levels I've experienced in the past that they might have had happened to them, and not to be embarrassed or frightened to express themselves on that matter. And make it fun.
Absolutely. I know that I had a really great parents that helped me understand that everyone is the same yet different, and though people may have what we would call a disability, it doesn't mean that they are not able. So to not use that against anyone, or to think that they are different, which is what I think that you're trying to say, is that we all have a something, right? And that for many other people, perhaps theirs is a little more readily available for people to see, but everyone has a something that they are dealing with, and that we're more alike than we realize. And I love that message that you are trying to share with the world. My listeners have heard me say that Dr. Maya Angelou has that line in many of her works, that reminds us of, we are more alike, my friend, than we are unalike. And I
agree with that.
There. Yeah, I love it. I loved that quote. When she said that, I just said, oh my goodness, that's good, because that's true. We really and truly are more alike than unalike. I love it. I love it. It is time for us to go to a break, but before we do, let me quickly remind you that we are speaking with Kenneth Amer today, and we're talking about his book, Into the Light to the Other Side of Tomorrow. It is available on Amazon or where books are sold. You can find him on Facebook at Kenneth.Amer, A-M-E-R. All righty, everyone, we'll be back. We are back. Thank you so much for joining me for a Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I am your host, Dr. Angela Butch-Chester. You guys know what I like to do on the show. I want to enlighten you, inspire you, and empower you, and that's exactly what my guest wants to do as well. We are spending time with Kenneth Amer today, and we're talking about his book, Into the Light to the Other Side of Tomorrow. Now, Kenneth, my next question for you is, there are so many people out there that's going to say, hey, Dr. Angela talks about books all the time. What makes your book so special? So let me ask you, in that realm of someone who's trying to decide whether or not they want to pick up a copy of your book, what makes your book special? What makes it unique? What makes it a little different than some of the other books out there on the virtual shelf?
My book is touching into my experiences within the metaphysics, experiences, and my faith, and my political views of bringing us better together. It is a bit like a hodgepodge, but I think it makes it interesting mix. It's something I feel like it's the first time somebody kind of did this kind of mix in this book to bring it all together and make it more understandable that we're not much different from one another after all.
Absolutely. I could not agree with you more there. I think that the more that we can find out how people are similar to each other, then that will give us that desire to be more agreeable with each other, to find that common ground and to see how we can get along better with one another. I couldn't agree with you more there. Now, as far as along that same vein of trying to be our best selves, is there any piece of advice that you can give to our listeners that you have found that these things work in your life, or you've written about it in the book? And it's like, if we do these simple things, then this can bring about more peace or more tranquility, more mindfulness in our lives.
Yes, we are like a balcony gathering fold. We are in a crazy can of mischief fun, and to bridge our curiosities to new perceptions that we may never have before. I was just luckily in my whole life with my physical blindness in a way, I have opened myself into other areas I could not believe what happened to me in phenomenal ways with my kind of faith. And I think the readers can learn to do that and talk to their neighbors, check them out, and who they are, than being afraid of the person that don't look a lot like them. There might be a big surprise they may have to share with the listeners too. And I think in the places I worked at, I've seen some negativity, some positive things I wanted to put out there to make things better. And it's a freedom to fly free with an international common union of whole, and to be the soulmates of the foggy bays and falling stars within the park in the universe. Even when I sat by Rocky Point, as looking at the ocean of the mysteries we don't know about that, as well as like in space. And I know we're not alone. And I want to share that. And that is in my book. Those are some of the titles I've mentioned. And I feel that we are on the balcony of a gathering fold. We are the cubism of glass box. And an absolute to me is like a house of mirrors. We have many heroes that come and express themselves to make our world better, and I wanted to show that to the public.
I think that when we understand that we are all a part of the human community, that it really and truly does make a difference. And I love that you have that mindset that you're trying to figure out what can bring us together, as opposed to those things that are going to tear us apart. I love that about what you are trying to do there. Now, I want to ask you some questions that I ask of many of the authors that are on. One of the emails, the types of emails that I get, are from our aspiring authors out there. They love it when I ask these questions for them. So I want to kind of shift gears just a bit. And so the first question is about deciding on how you are going to publish. Everyone knows that you have to write what you're going to write. You know, it has to be edited. You have to choose a cover, but then you have to decide, do you self-publish and do everything yourself, or do you utilize the services of the professionals and, pay for the service to be done, but you also know that all of the check boxes will be checked off. How did you determine which way you would go, to self-publish or to use professional services?
I like professional services. I was on that self-publishing thing with another outfit that the circumstances was very negative, and I was very frustrated when they didn't finish the job. I wasn't able to sell anything. With my experiences, I need that because I need these other people, like a tutor. They may be. It's like they're tweaking something that I don't see. I can't. With my sight problem, I need tools and other people, and I am a little bit insecure that way because, like one of my cousins and other folks had all schooling. I did, but in high school and the Learning Center and in Phoenix College, but I found out other people they see something I didn't put out there, and I think for people of that challenge, that to me, I like that, working with others in that. And I don't want to have that experience again. Being, I want this, to be moved and to move people and be understood. And I think other people out there who can do the other, that's great. But to me, I think it's important to find a team.
I could not agree with you more. When you say that it's important to find a team, I know when I'm being interviewed, I tell people I might be the person that's out in front, but I work with so many teams of people that help make everything I do run smoothly, that it's not just about me, but that, team A, B, on down to, I have about 5 or 6 different teams that I collaborate with, and it's like they are amazing. They do what they do, and they do it really, really well. And when you can find those opportunities to work with folks that are truly professional and really good at what they do, then utilize that opportunity to present the best to the world. So I definitely understand why you wanted to use the team method. Now, when it comes to being a successful author, when we talk about success, I think that most people, Kenneth, will usually put like a material thing on it, right? Oh, being successful is a big car, or a big house or a fancy car. It's diamonds or furs or whatever it is in your mind's eye. But literary success many times looks different. Because we're talking about books. We're not talking about those tangible things as a result of our work. What does being a literary success, what would that sound like to you?
To me, I wanted to have enough room to do my music equipment. I wanted equipment for my site to work. And to me, I always wonder what it would be successful to have that type of place to work in. Or I never, in my past, had the money or the fortunes of other people had. But to me, being successful is having the tools and working with the people. I never really actually had a tribe or people to work on things. Most of the time I did things by myself, and I self-taught piano, guitar, flute, whatever. But I was always curious. It's like being on a lake and I hear the wind roar, and I'm on a boat and I hear the waves. I hear music when I was a kid, and I wanted to pick out those sounds, and not until 40 years later, they had the tools, and I was excited. And until the younger authors today, you have more tools to you now. I never dreamed you can go to an app and have $1 million studio and do something for $3 or $4.60 or something like that. It's that's the kind of things I wanted to have success. Have enough money to do what I want to do, and share it with others.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that many people are, now that we are dealing with a pandemic, I think that people are starting to understand that what they found to be extremely important prior to is not as important to them now, that people are starting to kind of have that paradigm shift. I remember one of my hopes and dreams was I wanted to have an office. I could not wait until I had an office. And then I had an office. I had a very beautiful, Class A building. It was a beautiful thing. Absolutely. But then COVID happened. And then everyone started working from home, and you realized that you were being just as productive from working at home as you were working in that building. Why? Because you were about the business of your business. So you are so right. I think that it is all relative, and you said a mouthful there. Just appreciate what you have, but shoot for your goals as well. And
you hit it on the nose, because with you people with the pandemic thing, that's for 2 years. 7 years for me, taking care of my parents until they went home.
Yeah.
And it was hard, but when you join my world, it is the little things in life. It's so wonderful to see the family and new members of the family come in. And we learn from each other from these things afterwards. Well, I learned a little earlier.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more, realizing exactly how precious and golden that time is with friends and family. I could not agree with you more. Well, Kenneth, we are out of time, but I have so enjoyed my talk with you today, and thank you for sharing your wit and wisdom with my listeners today. Before I let you go, though, could you remind everyone what is the title of this book? Where can we get a copy? And for someone who wants to follow you on social media, can we find you there as well?
Yes, you can. Into the light, to the other side of tomorrow. It will be a better version than before, and it will be reaching a better wholeness with my publishers will be helping me with. I thank you very much for your time with you.
Absolutely. And listeners, thank you as well for spending time with us here today. You could have been anywhere, but you chose to spend it here with us, and we appreciate your doing that. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all of that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.